What's up, house groups? So this week I was reading an article about Howard Hughes, who was one of the most brilliant, successful, wealthy guys that ever lived. He was an aviation innovator and a filmmaker and a whole lot more. But at one point in his life, he got really afraid of dying. And so he kind of became a recluse. He spent a whole bunch of years just desperately trying to preserve his life, and he hid out. Eventually he lived on the top floor of a hotel, and when he died, they went in and realized that the curtains had not been opened in all of the years that he lived there. He's a guy who was so worried about preserving his own life that he ultimately stopped living while he was still alive. And in Mark chapter 8, Jesus tells us that's pretty much how it works. He says anyone who wants to save their life is going to end up losing it, but anyone who loses their life for me and for the gospel will save it. And he presents this wildly different vision of living than we get anywhere else in our world, because we live in this world that is super concerned with self-preservation. And Jesus tries to tell us, if we walk the path of self-preservation long enough, and all of us are tempted to walk it, fear causes us to do that. Selfishness causes us to do that, and they're all around us. And so when we get afraid and we get selfish, we try to preserve our lives, and ultimately we chase after things that we're going to lose in the end, and we stop living while we're still alive. We become what the church father Augustine called incurvatus in se, curved in around ourselves. And Augustine said that's the ultimate result of sin. What sin does to you and me is it causes us to just curve in around ourselves, and we begin to sacrifice the creative purpose for which our Creator made us, and instead live in this hell of our own making. The 20th century philosopher Jean Paul Sartre said, "Hell is other people." And his contemporary C.S. Lewis said, "No, Sartre is wrong. Hell is the lack of other people. Hell is selfishness." Because when we're incurvatus in se, when we're so focused on ourselves and our life and our success and our stuff and our possessions and me and me and me, then we cut ourselves off from God, and we cut ourselves off from everybody around us, and we begin to live something that is less than the beauty and the fullness of the lives God created us for. But it's really easy to do. It's so easy in this world to get caught up in living for our stuff or our success and living for our resume. And we live in a culture that will pat us on the back the whole way along. But in Mark chapter 10, Jesus sat down with his disciples and he said, "Look, I know that's the way of the kingdoms of this world, but not so with you. I want to invite you to something better than that. I want to invite you to the lives you were created for. You were created by a self-giving God. In fact, God is so self-giving that I stepped out of eternity into the human story to give my life for your sake." When something had to be done about the sin problem, as God, I didn't just send somebody else. I came to die myself, and I created you to be self-giving, to be in relationship, to ask yourself the question, how can I leverage my power and my resources for those with less power and fewer resources? Because when you do that, when you begin to see the world through that lens of self-giving, then you can truly live while you're alive. You can live a better story that's not so curved in on yourself that God feels far and people feel far, and you're living in a hell of your own making. You can live a story that actually creates a better future for you and for every single life you crash into. And so my challenge to all of us this week is just to go out and live with a not so with you mindset. It's going to be really easy for us to continue to get caught up in the ways of this world, to continue to try to preserve our lives and build our resumes. But I want to challenge you this week to forget about living for your resume and start living for your eulogy. Start living for the things that will echo for eternity, the things that truly matter. Start asking yourself how you can get up under the burdens of the people around you in a way that shows them love and points them toward a God who was so self-giving that he gave up his life for you and me. Because if we do that, we can write a better story for our world.